Okay, so this week's assignment is our self-awareness video journal, and I'm going to go down all of the questions that are required for the video. So the first question for the topic to consider is, what did you learn about yourself after completing the module? So I really liked the module. I think it gave me some really good information and really good kind of things to think about before I become a teacher. And I think that implicit bias is something that everyone can work on. And, there's a lot of times when teachers or anyone, even not in the school setting, can say something and not realize that what they're saying could be offensive to someone else. Um, so that's me. The biggest thing I learned is that, sometimes I need to continue working on what I say prior to saying them because you never know who it could impact. If you may not mean anything by it, but it may impact someone differently. Some of the information that was new to me, maybe this one wasn't new to me on ways that our society creates implicit bias, but media and movies play a huge role in creating implicit bias. And it's true to this day. There's so many things that on television, on the internet, that people read and learn, and that is creating an implicit bias more than it should. I really liked how one of the teachers said that she connects some of her reading into her social studies lessons to kind of make the connection. And she asks her students to challenge each other during these discussions. She actually kind of surprised herself in one of the lessons that the students were challenging themselves by asking each other questions and making them think about it a little bit deeper than they normally would. And so she was kind of taken aback by how much the students actually gripped onto the assignment and took it even further to challenge each other. One thing I did learn is that for students attending segregated schools, these schools have less funding, and which I knew that, but I didn't realize that they had less experienced teachers. So that is one reason that schools of minorities kind of fit that persona of being stereotyped because of, they don't get as much funding as they should, and they don't have experience as many experienced teachers as some other schools might have. Another thing I really liked was the microaggressions, such as even just the little thing of saying a student's name correctly. And in the module, it gave an example of the teacher asking the student, well, do you have a nickname? Because that's going to be too hard for me to say. And, our names are our identity. And I personally always try to make sure I spell people's names correctly and I pronounce them correctly. So I make it a point myself to make sure I do that. So because our names are special, our names were given to us, that's who we are, that's what identifies us. And so to be able to say people's names correctly and actually show them that you care to say it correctly would go wonders with students. The last thing that I really liked the last two things I liked from the module was embracing the discomfort. One of the other teachers said, talking about race is uncomfortable and it's okay, but just to embrace the discomfort and go along with it and just speak with your students about it and open the conversation and engage it and just be involved no matter how uncomfortable it might get. And my last thing that I really liked from it was just continue learning from others. I am someone who understands and knows that you can learn something new every day in every situation. So I really liked that one of the speakers in the video said that you're constantly learning from others. How the next topic for consideration or topic to discuss is, how will you use the knowledge you acquired from this module to shape your professional practice? One of the things that I really did like was one of the teachers had said that asking questions and being uncomfortable is okay. And I think that that's one thing I will take with me. Sometimes it's hard in a classroom, especially when you're a new teacher starting out. It's very easy to be uncomfortable and kind of feel out of your element, but that's okay. And that's part of us growing and part of us learning. So that's kind of one thing I will take from this? Once in the field, what steps will I take to guard against implicit bias and discriminatory practices? I want to remind all my students in my classroom that our classroom is a safe place. It's a place where we can talk and trust each other and have each other's backs. And that's one thing I kind of really want to emphasize in my classroom. That the social emotional learning is actually super important for the classroom, just as, if not more important than learning our subjects, our curriculum of science and math and reading. And I think that social emotional learning and us as teachers have a responsibility to help our students grow and learn how to accept and show empathy and understanding and create and have responsible make responsible decisions and kind of all of the core competencies of social emotional learning. So I just think that, making our students aware, just along with myself, but also making our students aware of what they say might hurt other people, even though they don't think what they said was bad. Everyone takes things differently. So just be cognizant about that and understand to maybe think about what they're going to say before they say it. The last thing we have to discuss is to briefly discuss one of the critical incidents you listed on your timeline and how do you think it will impact you in your classroom, and then consider the parallels between what you learned in the module and critical incident. I wrote down two major critical incidents on my timeline, and I want to discuss them both because I feel like they're both super important to me as an individual. So my first critical incident started from when I was basically born and throughout my own entire childhood, that I was raised by a single mother and my father was not very rarely involved in my life. So I kind of was just raised by my mom, and I feel like that impacted me and made me kind of appreciate things a little bit more. But then also there's still that missing puzzle piece that kind of still goes into adulthood sometimes. What I feel like the parallels between what I learned and my critical incident of that specific one is that it kind of helps me understand, as being a teacher, that all families for my students are going to be different. And it helps me relate to students that may have a broken home. And I think sometimes students, especially in the elementary level, kind of that can affect them. So if they can understand that their teacher also might have went through the same thing and was raised by a single parent or whatever, I'm hoping that I can relate to them and kind of help them work through some of those feelings that they might have. My second critical incident was, I played so throughout, probably more so middle school, high school, and college, I played sports. So I was heavily involved in sports. I had a lot of coaches, I had a lot of teammates, and I had a lot of coaches and teammates from different cultural backgrounds. And it didn't matter to any of us that we were different culturally or with our race or anything like that, or our coaches may have been a different gender, but we all had the same interest and the same goal in mind. And I think this has really helped me relate to others from different cultures, because it doesn't matter if how different we are, as long as we have one interest that we can all bond on. You can just build relationships on that. And I want to be able to relay that to my students as well. And that also helped me realize how important hobbies and sports are for children. I feel like being involved in something recreationally can help keep youth out of trouble, because I know it definitely helped me, and I have a lot of long lasting relationships that I wouldn't otherwise have if it wasn't for my coaches and my teammates in the sports that I played. So I think that's another thing that I really want to use in my classroom in the future.